A billionaire never expected that a simple hug from a waitress would change his daughter's life, fanned his own forever. Emily had been looking forward to her 7th birthday for weeks. She had spent hours picking out her favorite dress, a soft pink gown with little sparkling stars on it, and she had tied her long brown hair into 2 neat braids, just like she had seen on her favorite cartoon princess. She had a small backpack with her favorite stuffed rabbit, Mr. Floppy, tucked safely inside. Emily loved her little rabbit more than anything. He had been with her since she was a baby. He had witnessed every small adventure and every little fear she had faced in her life. Today, she wanted Mr. Floppy to be by her side. The restaurant was buzzing with life. Brightly colored balloons floated near the ceiling, and long curly ribbons hung down, swaying slightly with the movement of people passing by. Streamers in pink, blue, yellow, and green zigzagged across the walls, reflecting the sunlight coming in through the large windows. The smell of freshly baked cupcakes and sweet frosting filled the air, making Emily's stomach flutter with both excitement and nervousness. Children's laughter echoed through the room. Mingling with cheerful music that played softly from a speaker in the corner, Emily's friends were running around, chasing each other, squealing with delight as they tried to catch floating balloons or dance along with the music. But Emily didn't join them. She sat at a small table near the edge of the room, her legs swinging back and forth nervously under the chair. Her fingers fiddled with the hem of her dress, twisting the fabric and smoothing it out again and again. She wanted to join in. She really did. But something inside her made her freeze every time. She thought about stepping into the open space where everyone else was dancing. Her father. Michael was nearby, but not very attentive. He was a tall man in his late 40s, always perfectly dressed in crisp suits, even on weekends. Michael had built his life around work. He ran several companies and traveled often, and even though he loved his daughter deeply, he sometimes struggled to find the time to be fully present with her. That day, he had promised himself he would enjoy the party, but the phone calls kept coming in. He had been checking his emails and speaking to assistants, scribbling notes on a pad while keeping one eye on Emily. Michael noticed that she wasn't joining the other children, but he assumed she would warm up eventually. He didn't realize just how anxious she felt. Emily's mother had passed away when she was very young, and while she had loving caregivers, she still carried a quiet shyness and a tendency to worry in new or crowded situations. Birthdays were meant to be fun, but for Emily, the crowd, the attention, and the noise made her feel small and invisible. She watched her friends twirl around the room, their laughter ringing in her ears. Her chest tightened with a mixture of longing and fear. She wanted to join them so badly, but she couldn't stop thinking about what might happen if she fell or made a mistake. The fear of being laughed at was stronger than her desire to dance. Emily's little hands clutched Mr. Floppy tightly to her chest. She hugged him close, feeling comforted by the familiar softness of his fabric. She whispered to him, "I wish I could dance, Mr. Floppy, but I'm too scared." Her voice was barely audible, but it was full of the kind of honest, raw emotion that only a child could have. She peeked at the other children from behind her braids, imagining how much fun it must be to be fearless like them. Her eyes were wide, filled with both admiration and a little envy. Around her, the other parents were busy talking to each other or taking photos of their children. Some cheered as the kids danced, clapping along to the music. Others were engaged in their own conversations, sipping coffee or eating snacks. Michael tried to balance watching his daughter with attending to business. But the more he looked at her, the more he realized that something was holding her back. He saw the tight grip on Mr. Floppy, the way she bit her lip, and the slight trembling in her hands. He felt a twinge of guilt for not noticing sooner, but he didn't know how to approach her in a way that would make her feel safe and comfortable. Emily's eyes wandered across the room and landed on a tall woman in a simple uniform, a waitress carrying a tray of cupcakes to a table of excited children. The woman moved with grace and a quiet confidence, smiling softly at the children around her. Something about the warmth in her smile caught Emily's attention. She felt a strange sense of calm just looking at her, as if the world outside her little bubble of fear had softened for a moment. Emily watched as the woman knelt down to talk to another shy child, handing them a cupcake and encouraging them to take a bite. The gesture was small, but it seemed magical to Emily, who had been feeling invisible for most of the party. Despite being nervous, Emily couldn't take her eyes off the woman. She was tall enough to notice everything happening in the room, but gentle enough to not overwhelm anyone. Emily felt a glimmer of hope, a tiny spark, that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to face the dance floor alone. But the thought of stepping out and being watched by so many people still made her stomach twist into knots. She hugged Mr. Floppy tighter, whispering, "I wish someone would just hold my hand and help me." Time seemed to stretch. The music kept playing, children kept laughing, and the balloons floated lazily above, but Emily remained seated. She wanted the courage to get up and join the fun, but fear wrapped around her like an invisible chain. Every so often, she would glance at her father, hoping he might come over and encourage her. He did glance at her, yes, but his attention was divided. He noticed her hesitance, but didn't know exactly how to help. His heart felt heavy as he realized that his daughter's special day wasn't bringing her joy the way it should. Emily's little world of fear and longing continued, but amidst the bright colors, laughter, and cupcakes, something quietly shifted. There was a sense of waiting in the air, a feeling that change was about to happen, though she didn't know what or how. The tiny spark of hope that she felt when watching the kind waitress was growing, even if she couldn't quite name it yet. For the first time that afternoon, Emily felt that maybe someone outside her family might understand her, notice her fear, and care enough to reach out. And so, as the music played on and the children danced around her, Emily sat with Mr. Floppy clutched tightly, staring at the magic unfolding in the room. She didn't know it yet, but this small moment of quiet observation, of noticing someone who seemed kind and gentle, was about to change her birthday and perhaps her life forever. She didn't know that in just a few moments, someone would step into her little bubble of fear and help her take her first brave step into a world she had longed to join. Emily's small heart was still racing from the swirl of emotions she felt at her birthday party. She had been sitting quietly for what felt like hours, watching her friends jump, laugh, and twirl around on the dance floor. Each giggle and shout seemed to highlight her own fear of stepping out, making her feel even smaller. Clutching Mr. Floppy tightly, she wished she could somehow vanish, or at least shrink down to the size of her stuffed rabbit and hide behind him. It was in this fragile moment that Sarah, a young waitress working at the restaurant that day, noticed Emily. Sarah had been moving from table to table, serving cupcakes and drinks with her usual gentle efficiency. She had a way of noticing things that most people missed: how a child's smile might falter, how a little hand trembled when holding a cup, how someone's eyes darted around nervously. Sarah had a gift for sensing emotions, a quiet empathy that came naturally to her. When she spotted Emily sitting alone, hugging her rabbit, and watching the world pass by, she instantly recognized that the little girl was scared and needed a small but meaningful gesture to feel safe. Without hesitation, Sarah set down the tray she had been carrying and walked toward Emily. She moved slowly, making sure not to startle her, and knelt down so that her eyes were level with Emily's. The warmth in Sarah's smile was immediate and comforting, like the glow of sunlight peeking through a window on a chilly morning. "Hi there," she said softly, her voice gentle and calm. "I'm Sarah. What's your name?" Emily hesitated. Her small voice whispered, almost as if it didn't fully trust that it would be heard. "Emily," she said, gripping Mr. Floppy even tighter. Her eyes were wide, scanning Sarah's face. Unsure whether she could trust this stranger, Sarah nodded slowly, making eye contact without being overwhelming. "It's really nice to meet you, Emily. I see you're holding Mr. Floppy. He looks very brave." Emily's lips twitched into the tiniest of smiles at this, and Sarah knew she was reaching her. "You know," Sarah continued, "I see you sitting here, and I know that the dance floor looks a little scary. But I also know something important. You can do anything, even if it feels hard at first." Emily's small shoulders relaxed just a fraction. She wanted to dance. She really did, but fear had built up inside her like a wall. Her chest felt tight, her knees a little wobbly. She looked at Sarah, unsure if anyone could really help her take that first step. But there was something about the gentle, calm energy radiating from the young waitress that made Emily feel even if just slightly, that she could try. Sarah knelt a little closer. She didn't reach for Emily's hand right away. She knew that the little girl needed to feel safe making the choice herself, but she opened her arms in a gentle, welcoming hug. "It's okay to feel scared," she said softly. "Sometimes, when I feel scared, a hug makes everything a little better. Would you like a hug?" Emily blinked. No one had ever asked her that before. Most adults simply told her to be brave or stop crying, which only made her feel worse. But this was different. Sarah wasn't telling her what to do, she was offering comfort and understanding. Slowly, cautiously, Emily leaned into the hug, wrapping her arms around Sarah in return. The warmth of the embrace was immediate and soothing. It was the kind of hug that said, without words, "You are safe. You are seen. You matter." For a few moments, Emily just held on. She could feel the rhythm of Sarah's breathing, the gentle rise and fall of her chest. It was calming, grounding her in a way that nothing else at the party had managed to do. The noise of laughter, music, and chatter became background static. In that hug, Emily felt a spark of courage flicker inside her chest. She felt the first tiny stirring of belief that maybe she could step onto the dance floor after all. Sarah spoke softly, encouragingly as she hugged Emily. "You don't have to dance right away. We can just take one tiny step at a time. If you want, I can stand right here with you. We'll do it together." Emily's eyes widened at this. The idea of facing the dance floor still scared her, but having someone by her side, someone who understood her fear, made it feel possible. Slowly, she nodded. Together, they moved a few steps toward the dance floor. Emily's little legs felt wobbly, but Sarah's presence made them feel a little stronger. Every step was a victory. Every hesitant glance at the other children dancing became slightly less intimidating. Emily still clutched Mr. Floppy, but now she felt a bit of bravery pulsing through her tiny body. Sarah kept her voice soft, offering gentle encouragement with every movement. "See? You're doing it," Sarah said with a smile. "You're already on the dance floor. That's amazing." Emily's lips curved into a shy smile. She wasn't dancing yet, but she was standing there on her own 2 feet, facing her fear. And that was the first step toward something truly wonderful. Few children noticed her standing there and waved or smiled at her. Emily felt a surge of nervous excitement. She could hear the music more clearly now, its rhythm calling her. Sarah took a small step back, giving Emily space, but staying close enough that she could reach out at any moment. Emily felt her courage growing. She tilted her head, looked at Sarah, and gave her the tiniest nod, a silent thank you for being there, for noticing her, for making her feel safe enough to try. The next few minutes were small but powerful. Emily began to sway slightly to the music, hesitant at first. Sarah clapped softly and cheered quietly, making sure Emily knew she was doing great. Each little sway made Emily feel braver. She laughed softly at herself, realizing that dancing wasn't as scary as she had imagined. Sarah's presence had transformed the overwhelming crowd into a safe space where Emily could explore, experiment, and feel joy. By the end of those first few moments, Emily was no longer hiding behind her fears. She was still shy, still cautious, but the spark Sarah had ignited was growing into a flame. Emily's friends began to notice her and invited her to join in the group dances. With Sarah watching from the side, giving subtle encouragement, Emily found herself taking more confident steps. She spun carefully, laughed, and even began to clap along to the rhythm of the music. The magic of the moment wasn't just in the dancing, it was in the connection, the human touch, and the understanding that someone outside her family cared enough to reach out. Emily realized that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about taking small steps, with support, even when fear was still present. And at that moment, hugging Sarah and stepping onto the dance floor for the first time, Emily felt a kind of happiness she had never experienced before. Sarah's simple, kind gesture, hug, a few encouraging words, and a willingness to stand beside Emily had transformed a timid, fearful child into one who was learning to trust, to try, and to embrace life's small joys. It was a moment that would stay in Emily's heart forever, a reminder that sometimes even a stranger's kindness can make a world of difference. By the time Emily returned to her table, sweaty from a few more dances and beaming with shy pride, she clutched Mr. Floppy with a new sense of confidence. The little rabbit had been a source of comfort, but now Emily knew that support could also come from unexpected places, from someone who simply noticed her, understood her, and offered a hand or a hug at the perfect moment. Michael had been standing near the edge of the room, trying to balance his attention between his phone and the birthday party. His mind was crowded with emails, business calls, and schedules. But every so often, he would glance at his daughter. Emily, for most of the party, she had been sitting quietly, hugging Mr. Floppy and watching the other children dance. Michael knew she was shy, but he assumed she would eventually join the fun. He had no idea how anxious she felt, how frozen with fear she had been, how heavy her little heart had been with worry. Then he noticed something that made him pause. A young waitress, Sarah, had approached Emily and was kneeling gently beside her. Michael didn't understand everything that was happening at first. He saw Emily lean into Sarah's hug, her small arms wrapped around the waitress, and a tiny smile breaking across her face. He saw her take a few cautious steps toward the dance floor. Encouraged softly by Sarah's words and her calm, supportive presence, something shifted inside Michael the moment he saw that. He realized that his daughter, the little girl he adored more than anything in the world, had just been given something far more valuable than a toy or a cupcake. Someone had noticed her fear and helped her face it. Someone had offered her kindness, patience, and confidence, and it had worked. Michael's heart swelled with a mix of surprise, gratitude, and a deep, almost overwhelming love for both his daughter and the woman helping her. Michael slowly lowered his phone, his attention finally undivided. He watched as Emily, still a little timid, began to sway gently to the music, her movements hesitant at first but growing more confident by the second. She laughed softly, her nervousness melting away, replaced with joy and a new sense of bravery. The other children began to notice her, waving and smiling, inviting her to join their games. Emily's eyes sparkled as she accepted, and Michael felt an unfamiliar lump form in his throat. It wasn't just that Emily was smiling. It was that someone had helped her feel safe enough to overcome her fear. Someone had reached out when he hadn't. Michael felt a wave of humility and awe. He had spent years building his companies, accumulating wealth, making decisions that affected thousands of people. Yet here, in this small restaurant, filled with balloons and music, he realized that the most powerful thing in the world was not money or influence, it was simple human kindness. He watched Sarah, standing a few feet away, but always close enough to guide Emily, gently clapping when the little girl tried a new dance move or spun around the room. Her patience and warmth were evident in every movement, every smile. Michael noticed how she didn't rush Emily, how she allowed her to grow at her own pace, how she seemed to understand Emily's tiny world in a way that no one else had. He was struck by the fact that this young woman, someone he had never met before, could make such a profound impact on his daughter's happiness in just a few minutes. Michael couldn't help but think about all the moments. He had been too busy to notice birthdays missed, dance recitals skipped, simple conversations lost in the rush of life. And yet here was Sarah, who didn't have a duty, didn't have a reason to step in beyond her natural kindness, making a difference that he had failed to make in years. He felt both grateful and ashamed, realizing how rare it was to encounter someone whose compassion was so genuine, so immediate, and so transformative. He remembered how Emily had hugged Mr. Floppy tightly at the start of the party, how she had whispered her fears to her little rabbit, and how that fear had begun to dissolve the moment Sarah embraced her. Michael felt a sudden surge of emotion. He could see the spark of courage in Emily's eyes, a tiny flame that had been kindled by a stranger's understanding and love. And in that moment, he understood something profound. It wasn't just Emily who had been affected by this simple gesture. He, too, had been touched, reminded of the kind of humanity that money and power could never buy. Michael stepped closer, moving quietly so as not to interrupt the moment between Emily and Sarah. He wanted to observe, to witness the transformation with his own eyes. He saw Emily take a few more steps, spinning carefully, laughing more freely, gaining confidence with each movement. She began to interact with the other children, her shyness giving way to curiosity and joy. Michael realized that this small shift in her behavior was monumental. It wasn't just a dance, it was a breakthrough. A small but powerful victory over fear and doubt. He thought about how many children, especially shy ones like Emily, struggled in social situations. How many missed opportunities, how many moments of joy had been lost because someone hadn't taken the time to notice or help. Michael felt a renewed sense of appreciation for people who,
Right, Sarah.
dedicated even a few minutes of their attention and care to someone else's happiness. It was rare, and it was precious. Michael's mind began to drift to thoughts about the future. He wondered about Sarah's life, her dreams, her struggles. He noticed the confidence in her posture, the kindness in her actions. He felt a sudden curiosity about the person behind the gentle smile. He realized that someone with this much empathy and understanding could do incredible things if given the right opportunity. And, for reasons he couldn't quite explain yet, felt compelled to learn more about her. Meanwhile, Emily's joy continued to grow. She was no longer the frightened little girl clinging to her stuffed rabbit in the corner. She was dancing, moving, laughing, and experimenting with new steps. She even managed a few spins that made her feel proud of herself. Every time she looked at Sarah, she saw encouragement and warmth, which reinforced her confidence. Michael noticed that Emily's body language had completely changed. Her shoulders were no longer tense. Her steps were lighter, and her smile radiated a pure, unfiltered happiness that warmed his heart. Michael realized that what had happened in just a few minutes was something extraordinary. He had witnessed the transformative power of kindness firsthand. He had watched a shy, scared child gain confidence, not through instruction or discipline, but through patience, understanding, and a simple act of caring. And he understood something even more significant: these moments of connection. These small acts of empathy were the true measure of impact in life. As the music continued, Michael stood silently, absorbing every detail. He saw the way Sarah stayed close, giving Emily just enough space to explore, but remaining ready to support her at a moment's notice. He saw Emily's laughter, her cautious but growing confidence, and the way other children began to notice and welcome her into their games. It was a beautiful scene, a living example of what compassion and attentiveness could achieve. Michael felt a sense of resolve building inside him. He wanted to meet Sarah, to thank her properly, to understand the person who had done something so simple, yet so profound. He knew that what she had done for Emily could not be measured in money or status. It was priceless. And he felt that he might be able to do something meaningful. Not just for Emily, but for Sarah as well. To recognize the kind of impact she could have in the world, in that moment. Michael fully understood that life's most powerful moments weren't the ones on spreadsheets or in boardrooms. They were the small, quiet gestures of love and empathy. The moments when someone truly sees another person and helps them shine. Emily had found her courage, and he had found a renewed respect for the power of human kindness. He took a deep breath and made a silent promise to himself. He would find a way to acknowledge Sarah's kindness, to ensure that the world recognized the value of people who uplifted others. And he knew deep in his heart that this day, the day of Emily's shy first steps toward dancing, would be remembered not just for the celebration, but for the unexpected, life-changing presence of a kind and thoughtful stranger. Michael stayed there a few more moments, watching Emily twirl, seeing the joy in her eyes, and feeling gratitude for Sarah's intervention. He knew that what had happened here was more than just a moment at a birthday party. It was a small miracle, a reminder that compassion could create lasting change. And he realized that sometimes the simplest acts, like a hug or a gentle word, could ripple outward and touch more lives than anyone could imagine. After the party ended and the last of the children had been picked up by their parents, Michael walked slowly towards Sarah. The room, which had been buzzing with laughter and music just moments ago, now felt calm and quiet. The balloons hung still from the ceiling, and the faint scent of frosting lingered in the air. Michael's mind was racing, trying to find the right words to say. He had never felt such a strong mixture of admiration, gratitude, curiosity all at once. Sarah was wiping down a table, arranging some leftover napkins, and preparing to head off for her next task. She looked up as Michael approached, and a small smile appeared on her face, a mixture of politeness and curiosity. "Hi," Michael said softly. "Can we talk for a moment?" Sarah nodded, unsure why this tall, well-dressed man had singled her out. She had only done what felt natural helped a little girl feel safe enough to dance. It wasn't anything extraordinary to her, just a simple act of kindness. But she had learned over the years that adults sometimes responded differently to such things, especially when they noticed the impact it had. Michael gestured to a quiet corner of the restaurant, where they could speak without interruptions. "I just want to thank you," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I don't know your story, and I don't know how long you've been working here, but what you did for Emily today, it means more to me than you can imagine." Sarah blinked, slightly embarrassed. "Oh, it was nothing really," she said softly. I saw she was scared, and I thought maybe a little encouragement could help. That's all." Michael shook his head. "It's not nothing. You have no idea how long she's been struggling with being shy in big groups. You were patient, kind, and gentle. In a few minutes, you helped her feel safe, gave her courage, and made her happy in a way I haven't been able to do. That's not nothing, it's extraordinary." Sarah looked down, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. She didn't expect to be praised like this, especially by someone she assumed was important. Michael noticed her humility and sincerity, and it only made his admiration for her grow. He could see that she wasn't looking for recognition. She had acted out of pure empathy and kindness. Michael paused, choosing his words carefully. "I want to understand more about you," he continued. "I want to know your dreams, what drives you, what you hope for in life. Because I think someone with the heart and patience you have could do incredible things if given the right support." Sarah hesitated. She wasn't used to strangers showing such interest in her life, especially not strangers who seemed so influential and wealthy. But there was something in Michael's tone that made her feel safe to share. She took a deep breath and spoke quietly. "I've always wanted to work with children, maybe in education or therapy, helping them gain confidence and overcome challenges. But I don't have the resources, the training, or the guidance to pursue it. I've been stuck here, doing what I can day by day, hoping to save up enough to one day take a chance on my dreams." Michael listened intently, nodding as he absorbed her words. He felt a strong connection to her story. Here was someone whose values and compassion aligned perfectly with what he wanted to support in the world. He also felt inspired. This was a rare opportunity to help someone with genuine talent and heart. Someone who had already made a positive impact on his daughter's life. "I see that," he said finally, "and I want to help. Not just because you helped Emily, but because I believe in what you want to do, and I believe in you. There are opportunities, scholarships, mentorship programs, things that could help you reach your goals. And I would like to see if we can create a path for you if you're willing." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. She had not expected this at all. Most of the time, people in her position were overlooked, unnoticed, or dismissed. But here was someone offering more than just words of encouragement. He was offering real support, chance to turn her dreams into reality. Her hands trembled slightly as she responded, I don't know what to say this. It's more than I ever imagined." Michael smiled warmly. "You don't have to say anything right now. Just know that I am serious and I want to help you in any way I can. Your actions today spoke louder than any words could. They showed me who you are, and that's worth far more than any resume or application could convey." For a moment, Sarah was speechless. She had spent years quietly helping children, guiding them, giving them support and encouragement. But no one had ever recognized the value of those moments in such a profound way. The idea that someone with the means and influence to make a real difference had noticed her, appreciated her, and wanted to invest in her future was overwhelming. Michael leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice in a tone that was sincere and encouraging. "The world needs people like you. People who see others, who care, who are willing to make someone feel safe and brave. You have a gift, Sarah, and I want to help you nurture it so you can reach your full potential." Sarah's mind raced. She thought about her own life, the the struggles, the dreams she had set aside, the endless hours working to make ends meet. And now, here was a man who not only acknowledged her kindness, but wanted to actively support her. It felt almost unreal. I can't believe this is happening, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I've always wanted to do something meaningful, to help children grow and feel confident. But I never thought I'd have a chance to make it real. Michael smiled, his eyes softening as he looked at her. You have already made it real, in a way. Today, you changed my daughter's life. That's proof of your potential. Imagine what you could do if you had the right guidance, training, and support. That's what I want to offer you. For a few moments, they just stood there quietly, absorbing the weight of the moment. The noise of the restaurant had faded into the background, leaving just the two of them in the sense that something extraordinary was unfolding. Michael felt a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose. Knowing that he could help someone whose values and heart mirrored his own, Sarah felt hope blossoming in a way she hadn't felt in years. Finally, she nodded slowly, a mixture of disbelief and determination in her eyes. Yes, she said softly. I want to do this. I want to take the chance. I don't want to waste this opportunity. Michael's smile widened. Good. Then we'll make it happen. We'll figure out the next steps together. And I promise you won't be alone in this. We'll help you every step of the way. A sense of possibility hung in the air, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a long storm. Sarah felt a mix of excitement, fear, and anticipation, but most of all, she felt grateful. She had never imagined that a simple act of kindness, a hug and a few encouraging words, could lead to something that might change her entire life. Michael glanced toward the now empty dance floor. Thinking about Emily, he felt a renewed sense of pride, not just in his daughter's bravery, but in the ripple effect of compassion. One small act of caring had transformed a little girl's day. Now it had the potential to transform a young woman's entire future. He realized once again that the true value of life was measured not in wealth or status, but in the impact we had on others and the kindness we offered in unexpected moments. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a newfound determination. She had been given a chance to follow her dreams, to make a real difference in children's lives, and to turn the small acts of care she had always given into a meaningful career. She looked at Michael and smiled, a smile full of hope and gratitude. Thank you, she said simply. Michael nodded, understanding that words alone couldn't express the significance of the moment. No, thank you, he replied. You reminded me of something important today, that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the world. And today, you've changed a little part of it, my daughter's world, and maybe, soon, much more. And with that, they parted for the moment, both feeling the quiet weight and excitement of what was about to unfold, a journey that would begin with a hug at a birthday, party, and could lead to a future neither of them could have imagined just a few hours before. In the weeks following Emily's birthday, life began to shift in ways that felt almost magical. What started as a simple act of kindness, a hug from a young waitress, had grown into something far more meaningful. Michael, inspired by Sarah's compassion and her unspoken potential, made arrangements to help her pursue her dreams. What Sarah initially thought would be a small, one-time encouragement turned into a life-changing opportunity she'd only ever dreamed about. Sarah received the first letter from Michael's foundation, inviting her to a scholarship program that would cover her tuition for a prestigious child education course. She could hardly believe it. She read the letter over and over, her hands trembling with a mixture of excitement, disbelief, and joy. The words seemed almost surreal, like she was reading about someone else's life rather than her own. The thought that her lifelong dream working with children, helping them gain confidence and courage, was finally within reach felt overwhelming. The first day of her course was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Sarah had worked hard as a waitress for years, gaining patience, empathy, and problem-solving skills. But now, she would be learning the theory, techniques, and practical knowledge to become a professional in child education. She walked into the classroom with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. Every smile, every greeting from fellow students and teachers reminded her that she was in a space where her passion mattered. She felt seen and validated in a way she had never experienced before. Meanwhile, Michael continued to check in with her, not as a boss, but as a mentor. He introduced her to educators, psychologists, and experienced teachers who could guide her career. He offered advice on managing time, developing her skills, and even balancing life's challenges while following her dream. Sarah was amazed at the generosity and attention Michael gave to her growth. It was not just financial support, it was mentorship, guidance, and a network of opportunities she had never imagined having. As Sarah progressed in her studies, she reflected often on the day she met Emily. She realized that the small, simple choices she made, kneeling down to offer a hug, speaking gently, encouraging Emily to take her first steps onto the dance floor, had sparked a chain of events that changed both their lives. Emily's smile, her courage, and her laughter were proof of the power of kindness. And now Sarah had a chance to extend that same impact to countless other children in the future. Emily, on the other hand, had continued to grow more confident. Her father, Michael, remained more attentive, inspired by the realization of how a small act of encouragement could transform a child's life. Emily now approached new situations with curiosity rather than fear. She danced freely at school, made friends more easily, and even encouraged other shy children to join her in activities. Sarah's influence lingered in her mind not just as a warm memory of a birthday party, but as a reminder that courage often starts with someone believing in you. For Sarah, every day in the program was a new adventure. She learned about child psychology, behavioral strategies, and creative teaching methods. She discovered ways to make children feel included, safe, and confident, just like she had done with Emily. The classes were challenging, but Sarah felt alive in a way she never had behind a waitress counter. She took notes meticulously, asked questions, and spent hours after class practicing her skills. She could feel herself becoming the professional she had always wanted to be. Financial concerns, which had once seemed insurmountable, no longer held her back. The scholarship allowed her to focus entirely on learning, without the constant worry of making ends meet. She could buy books, attend workshops, and even travel for educational seminars. Each opportunity opened doors she had only imagined in her dreams. She began to see a future where she could make a real difference in the lives of children who struggled like Emily once had. The transformation was not just professionally, it was deeply personal. Sarah's confidence grew alongside her skills. She walked taller, spoke with more assurance, and carried herself with a quiet sense of pride. She realized that the world was not as limited as she had once thought. There were people willing to support, guide, and uplift others, and now she had become a living example of that truth. She could not help but think back to that day at the restaurant and smile. A hug and a kind word had started everything. Michael watched her progress with quiet satisfaction. He often reflected on how serendipitous the encounter had been, how Emily's shyness had created a moment for Sarah to shine, and how Sarah's compassion had, in turn, changed his daughter's life. He realized that sometimes the most important investments were not financial but human. He had invested in Sarah's potential, and the returns were far greater than he had ever imagined. Sarah's success, her confidence, her impact on children's lives were all proof of the ripple effect that one act of kindness could create. Months later, Sarah had completed her first year of the program with distinction. She had already begun volunteering at local schools, putting her skills into practice, and seeing the results firsthand. Children who had been shy, hesitant, or afraid were learning to smile, speak up, and participate. Parents thanked her, teachers admired her methods, and Sarah felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She realized that she was not just teaching children, she was helping them discover themselves. Just as she had helped Emily, Emily and her father remained an important part of Sarah's journey. They visited the classroom occasionally. Michael introduced Sarah to other families and philanthropists who were interested in child development programs. Emily proudly showed her friends pictures of Sarah, the woman who had changed her birthday into a memory of courage and joy. The bond between the three of them was special, built on trust, kindness, and mutual respect. Sarah's life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. From a waitress, working long hours with little hope for the future, she had become a young professional, confident, skilled, and ready to make a lasting impact on children's lives. And it all began with a moment of empathy, a choice to offer a hug to a little girl who was too scared to dance. Looking back, Sarah often marveled at the power of small gestures. One act of kindness had started a ripple effect, touching her life, Emily's life, and countless other children she would reach in the future. She had learned that courage could be contagious, that compassion could change the course of lives, and that sometimes the most important opportunities come from the simplest human connections. Emily, growing more confident every day, often ran to Sarah whenever they met. She would hug her tightly, remembering the day when fear had been replaced with joy. Emily had learned an invaluable lesson, that vulnerability could be met with kindness, and that courage sometimes comes from trusting someone to stand beside you. The memory of that birthday party remained in her heart, forever a reminder that a single hug could change the world. And so, life moved forward, brighter and more hopeful than ever. Sarah pursued her dreams. Michael continued to support and mentor her, and Emily grew into a more confident, joyful child, shaped not only by her family, but also by the kindness of a stranger who had seen her fear and chose to act with compassion. In the end, what had started as a simple act of warmth and understanding blossomed into a story of hope, opportunity, and transformation. One small hug, one moment of attention and empathy, had forever changed the lives of 3 people. It was a reminder that kindness is powerful, that noticing others matters, and that sometimes a single moment can set in motion a lifetime of change.